here's a short demo on Feeling Good, Nat 5. This piece is in 12/8, which means we're going to split each beat into 3 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to take each of those beats and split them into 3, so it's going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that's what our hi-hat's going to play. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and on 2 and 4 we're going to do a cross stick, so a nice strong sound. Experiment with the drum, so hand flat on the middle of the drum, keep the stick in contact with it, and you want to keep the bottom end of your stick on the drum all the time, and just lift it up and put it back down. Experiment with different places on the drum and different parts of the stick, so depending on where you hit it, the edge of the drum on your stick, it'll make a different sound. You want a nice thick sound. Okay, so that happens on 2 and 4, so we're going to sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and always keep that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and in your head, because then you'll not drift to playing the old 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that you're used to doing. Okay, so the first part of this is fairly straightforward. It's a bass drum always happens on beat 1. If we look at bar 1, if we look at the first bar after the fill, we can see there's a circle above the last hi-hat. So that's going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so it might be useful just to practice from beat 4. 4 and 4 and 4 and bass drum obviously on beat 1 of the next bar. And if we look at bar 2, we've got a bass drum on the of beat 4. So it's going to go 4 and 4 and then we've got a bass drum on the beat 1 of the next bar, so we get 2 in a row. 4 and 4 and so that pattern sounds like this. Okay, so let's take it from the very start. You see it says play 6 more similar, so that just means in total we're doing 7 of these. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so that was 1, you need to do 7 of them. Let's talk about the first fill. So it starts on the floor tom, on the leading into beat 4, so it's on the before beat 4, like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 3 and then 2 bass drums on and 3 and which means we're going to get 3 bass drums in total because there's 1 straight after it with a crash. So it's going to go 3 and Now there's a lot of hi-hats happening just on their own, so it's really important that you count and know where you are all the time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and always think of falling into the strong beats with this one, so there's emphasis on the 1, not on the 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and just a slight emphasis on it. Okay, the next fill starts with the hi-hat and the bass drum, just like we normally would. That's a crotchet note, so our next note's on the the third partial of the group of 3. So like, and let's just get the rhythm on the snare drum. So our rhythm is this. So we're counting 1, 2 and 3. Let's move that beat 1 to the bass drum and hi-hat. Okay, then we need to move the rest of the drums around the kit. So the first two, A2 out on the snare drum. Then we've got the middle tom and then the floor tom. So it's going to go. Just practice that pattern. I'm playing left, right, left, right, left. I think that's the easiest way to do it. So 2 on the snare drum, 1 on the middle tom, 2 on the floor tom. 1, 1. Now you'll notice on the floor tom, we've got a little grace note, so we're playing this. It's a flam. The left hand is going to hit the drum before the right hand. So the right hand is the main note on time, and the left hand comes just before it. You can play it the other way around, doesn't matter. You can do left, right. As long as there's a definite difference and it's not just at the same time. So we're getting. For me, the flam falls easiest doing a right hand first, then a left hand. Either or, doesn't really matter as long as it sounds like a flam. Also notice that fill has to get louder, it's got a crescendo written underneath it. So that flam should be the loudest note. Let's practice it with the bar before. So the bar before is going and 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 and. Notice how beat 1 is longer. We're not playing the and, but we're playing the a. 1 and A2. Okay, that's the first little section. Let's see if we can do it from the start up until there. Don't lose count in these 6 bars. Make sure you know where you are all the time. So 1 and 2 and 3 and. Next section, we're now onto the ride cymbal. So let's build this up bit by bit. I'll play the whole groove for you, and then we'll try and add it on. It's a 2-bar pattern, so it's quite long. Here's how it sounds. The only difference between the first bar and the second bar is the crash cymbals at the end. Apart from that, it's the same. So let's break it down a little bit. The first half, we're playing bass drum on 1, snare drum on 2, and then 2 bass drums going into beat 3. 3. 1 and 2 and 2 and. Work on that until it's comfortable and then move on to the next bit. So this is starting on beat 3. We've got a syncopated snare drum. It's in between the quavers on the cymbal. So the first part of this on beat 3 is going. So just the hands, right, right, left, right. 3 and bass drum on the first of those 3 cymbal notes and the last. try and put it in from the start. Okay, so the next little part, just the last 3 notes of the bar, snare drum on 4, 2 bass drums on and then we're into beat 1 of the next bar. So fairly straightforward. Let's put that together from beat 3. So it's going. Take your time with this until it's really comfortable. Now we can put it all together from the start. The difference of the second bar at the end is on beat 4. So instead of going 4 and all of those bass drums are going to be crash cymbals this time. I prefer to do this swapping hands on the crash cymbals, but you can do it with one hand if you want, it's up to you. So let's have these 2 bars together really slowly. So 3 and 4 and This section only happens 2 times. I played it 4 at the beginning for you, just to let you hear it, but it just happens twice. It might take quite a while to get used to doing this in between the snare drum though. So just practice right. And then fill in the bass drums one at a time. One other note about that little in-between note is that it could be a bit quieter, so that the 4th beat of the bar has more emphasis. If it's all equally as loud, it doesn't feel quite right. If it's a bit more of a touch than a proper strike, it sounds much nicer.